Bachakang. Thank you.
Excellent.
Good show.
It was fun.
Yeah, that was a good conversation. I like that.
Good topic.
Thank you, Roger.
It's definitely a interesting one and the one that isn't talked about a lot.
Well, it's talked about in the they need to do something about it, you know? And my opinions on this have evolved over time, mostly because a lot of the things that worked, and I didn't even mention Tech TV, but Tech TV's forums and chat rooms as well, things that worked there don't work in this massive scale.
No, they definitely don't scale.
Yeah.
But speaking of scales, Showbot titles.
The scales will fall from our eyes as we read these Showbot titles. What do we got?
Brazil blocking baffling buffoonery. Baffoonery? I think this
points for alliteration, Silverblade.
Greater Internet F forward theory.
Okay.
Lewd comment, abandon all ye who hate, who Twitter here. Abandon all hate ye who... Right.
Abandon all hate ye who Twitter here.
Yes. A Frenchman in Finland. That was just an earlier...
All's fair in hacking in baseball. I like that one.
There's no hacking in baseball. Would be another one. That was actually really good, too.
Custom Snickers.
Strike It Rich is like... Strike It Rich and Shane are topping the charts today here.
What about does the internet destroy empathy? That's a very... It's not clever, but it's a very...
I feel like we didn't give a very good answer to that question.
Yeah. We're just asking questions.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes that's how the discussion starts.
Sure, sure. Playing Whack-A-Troll.
Ah, I like that too.
I like that. That might be my favorite so far.
Whack-A-Troll. Whack-A-Troll.
All right, let's go with playing Whack-A-Troll. What do you guys think?
Yep.
You have already voted for this. I know, I'm just highlighting it so I can copy it. Sorry. Jeez, Showbot. Relax. Well, now that we've fixed online trolling and the Brexit, what do we do next?
Wait, when did you Brexit?
Oh, he did on the Phileas Club.
Yeah, that was another show. Well, next, I believe fixing the U.S. election is what we should do.
Well, fixing the election means something different ahead of the I think some people may be trying to fix the election. On both sides, mind you.
Well, is the election actually broken, though? I mean, it does raise that question. You might not like the people involved.
Apparently my vote won't count at all because they've already given all 55 electoral votes to the Democratic nominee.
Wait, what?
There was a story in, what was it in? New York Daily News? They're like, they did a poll, one of those polls, and it was so far in one direction. They're like, it's not even a battleground.
Well, California's never been really a battleground state.
No, but it's been closer sometimes. And
I just saw a message on my Slack channel. A friend of mine says, my brother just sent me a message. WhatsApp is blocked in Brazil. Can you tell Dad to use Telegram, please?
Well, that's the side of it we've almost forgot. In the ridiculousness of them continuing to go after it, we forget, like, and blocking WhatsApp doesn't even really do anything.
I think that you could mention this if it comes up next time.
Yeah, I might. I will. That's great. Can you tell Dad to use Telegram? Then people will be like, well, Telegram is not nearly as secure as the Signal protocol. Which it's not.
I'm sure WhatsApp is just as secure as Telegram.
Oh, WhatsApp uses the Signal protocol, so it's
technically
more
you know
secure.
What?
Yeah.
Telegram is nowhere as secure as the Signal protocol. So.
tell him to use Signal. Who else picked up the Signal protocol? It was Facebook Messenger, wasn't it? But that's that weird thing where you have to turn it on each conversation. You don't get it every time.
Each conversation you have to do it?
Yeah, you have to go into secret mode or...
That is bad.
No, yeah. There's good reasons for it. They want to provide these services in Messenger that they can't if you're end to end, because the messages are stored only on your phone. So they have to be able to read them to do bots and stuff like that.
Right, no, of course, but I thought you would at least get, you could set up people with whom your conversations would always be.
You know what? Don't overinterpret what I'm saying. Maybe there is a way to have a persistent system like that. I just mean that it's not on by default. And I think you have to set it up per conversation. Although once you set it up for a conversation, I imagine that conversation stays secret. So.
Right. So is the patch for WoW live? Oh, maybe it's live in the US.
Oh, it's supposed to go live today, right?
Yeah.
Yes, many of you who are watching this live may want to pop over on diamondclub.tv to BitTorrent News. Justin Robert Young going live, kicking it, man. I don't know. Did you get a chance to watch any of it, Patrick? He was doing a great job.
What's happening?
He is hosting BitTorrent News coverage of the Republican National Convention.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and doing some field reporting as well. He helped break the story yesterday about the attempt to do a roll call vote to unbind the delegates, which didn't succeed, but they were able to cover that as it was happening.
So what's the call on? What's the news on the speech plagiarism thing?
Well, that depends on where you stand.
No, but is it?
I mean,
do we have a?
No, I mean, if you are someone who supports her, you're going to say, look, sometimes things sound the same because people say the same things all the time, which is perfectly reasonable. And if you're against her, you're going to say, no, she ripped off that paragraph and she's a plagiarist.
Do you honestly? I mean, we're live. I know you want to stay neutral. Do you honestly believe that this is? I mean, I can.
What I honestly believe is that if you prefer one candidate over the other, it's going to absolutely change your perception of this.
That is dodging the question.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is. You're being coy.
No, I'm not being coy. There is no way to prove that it's plagiarism. The one thing that I would like to see someone
prove anything is plagiarism.
I would like to see someone show how many other instances of one political speech having a paragraph that is very similar to another political speech unintentionally.
Tom, I think you're part of the problem. And I'm being very serious.
No,
I think I think being neutral as a journalist is incredibly important. I think sometimes you need to call out things when they happen, and you're valuing your neutrality.
This is not one of those things, in my opinion. We're just having a difference of opinion.
Well, I disagree with your assessment.
Because I think you prefer one candidate over the other.
I do, but that's not why I'm saying this. I would call the other person doing something similar in the same way.
And that's what I would like to know is how many other times has this happened that we've either forgot about or didn't notice?
This is, I think, well, maybe this is getting into political territory and you don't want to do that.
It's already in political territory.
Yeah, but this is reasonable. I was going to get less reasonable.
Yeah, and honestly, it isn't the thing that makes a difference. It really, that's, when you're saying like you need to call BS when it's important. I don't think this is that thing. I don't think this is important. It really doesn't matter whether she did that or not.
It doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things. I agree. I do think, however, that that BS has not been called in the past. I think it's being called now.
Well, you guys were talking about this a little on the Brexit episode of the Phileas Club, and the fact of the matter is, a lot of times calling BS on things for people backfires because it assumes that, well, if I can just show people that this is BS, they'll change their mind. And the fact of the matter is, no, they won't. It'll actually solidify them in their position, and they'll come up with even more mental gymnastics and reasons why they need to continue to believe what they believe. If you actually want to change someone's mind, you have to move towards them and say, well, you're right about a lot of these things, but what about this one thing? That is a there's a great Ars Technica article about it, is when you call bullshit and say, hey, what you're believing isn't true, people actually retreat and say, no, it is true, which is what we've seen a lot in things like climate change. That's one where I will say, yes, no, the climate is in fact changing. There's solid evidence about this. But you won't hear me going and shouting about it all the time, because that's what caused people to kind of say, no, I don't want to believe it. And so you guys keep telling me it's gonna be dangerous, and it's not dangerous yet, and so I'm gonna deny it.
Yeah, I understand the thought process. I still think that for some things, like, you know, climate change or the age of the Earth, or you know, these kinds of things, at some point, first, you know, for some things we can argue a lot. You know, the right to bear arms, the right to choose. There are many things that are highly divisive, but I agree there needs to be a conversation about. Some things, however, are plainly untrue. And in those cases, I think it's, you know, untrue or unacceptable, and the thing is, it's hard to decide when something is or isn't unacceptable, but it's kind of when I know it when I see it. Yeah. And sometimes people are not, you know, are playing with these ideas, but there's been a lot of unacceptable things happening. Like, I really want to have an episode of the Phileas Club where people explain to me how the Clinton, which I don't know a lot, but a lot of people are saying, well, you know, you have to choose between the plague and you know, another plague when you talk about Clinton and Trump. And I don't know Clinton enough, and I'm sure she's a, you know, politician, but and this is my personal opinion. Some of the things that I'm hearing from the Trump side make it difficult to believe that she would be as bad as this. I'm sure she's bad, but, you know, I don't understand how it's like, oh, it's the same thing.
Many of the things from the Clinton side that are being said about Trump are not true.
No, I'm not hearing stuff that I don't know what the Clinton side is saying. I'm just hearing what Trump is saying.
Well, there's your problem.
Okay. Oh, what you're saying is
you're only listening to one voice.
Well, it's the voice. Wait, I don't understand.
There's apparently one voice telling you, look, listen to this crazy stuff he's saying. No, and you're not hearing anyone saying, listen to the crazy stuff she's saying.
No. I'm not hearing someone tell me, listen to what the crazy stuff.
There are people saying that.
But I'm just hearing what he's saying, like just, you know, tweets and speeches and these kinds of things, right?
Yeah, but you're hearing it from where?
From here.
You're getting called. Your attention is getting called to it. Also, he's better at that game. But yeah, like, if you are in a particular mindset, you will want to see the crazy things in the person you think is crazy.
Okay. Is there anything that someone would ever say that would cause you to say this is unacceptable and it should not be allowed?
And that's where I go back to saying, like, let's say she did that. Her speechwriter, which, by the way, she didn't write the speech.
No, I'm not talking about
speechwriter copied a speech over. That is something where I'm like, yeah, that honestly, it's probably an accident if it is true, but it doesn't really matter. That's all I was saying. Now you're trying to bring me over into another argument and make me come up with something, and I'm like, yeah, of course. There are things that if someone said them, I'd be like, no, actually, there was a Holocaust. The climate is changing. Evolution is true. Like, there are definitely things that I believe because I have a very high level of confidence that they're true.
Okay. So I guess I'm going to go back to another question, which we discussed in the Phileas Club, as you said. Is it possible, and this is beyond, you know, the U.S. election, is it possible to find a way to make reality matter in those debates, in those questions? When we talked about it in the Phileas Club, it was about the 350 million pounds sent a week to the EU that the Brexit Leave camp was arguing.
Your follow-up conversation, he mentioned, like, yeah, but there were also lots of lies being said on the other side, and that's always the problem, is you choose which lies you want to identify.
But I don't think that's the case. I don't think that's the case. I think in this instance, the reason for the lies on the other side was exactly for what you were explaining, which is if you confront the people who are convinced of something, then it doesn't. If you tell them, well, listen, this is inaccurate, this is untrue, they don't believe it, right? So I think the other camp was trying to do a sort of an arms race, saying, well, if we leave, then it's going to be World War III, you know, these kinds of things, which obviously are silly as well. But at the core of it, there is still an argument that is that is inaccurate, like objective.
Yeah. No,
I guess what I'm
annoying.
trying to say is
it's
there are some things that are objectively untrue, and they don't seem to matter.
And I would say almost all the time that's true on both sides of an argument, where one person is spinning or saying something that is objectively untrue.
I want to go to the chat room, and Shane is saying 10 seconds to Hitler being mentioned. And I want to point out that we
Godwin's
didn't.
Law. Boom.
I want to point out that we didn't. So I think
I did
actually
mention
succeeded.
the Holocaust. So.
Oh, you did. Damn it.
That exactly. God, I don't know. Yeah, I put a link to an LA Times article. It's not the Ars Technica article I was thinking of. It's a more recent one. But it's just talking about a study. This is a more recent study showing that we truly believe that in most intractable conflicts, the real problems are not the real issues. There are psychological barriers that prevent societies from identifying opportunities for peace. Yeah. And they say if you want to change attitudes, don't argue, agree extremely.
I'll read the article. It seems...
Well, a part of it, I mean, I think the trouble you're having, Patrick, is you assume everyone's rational and that they would be persuaded or at least moved by...
No, I think you guys are being too rational.
What?
This is an issue of, at some point, leaving rationality out of it and just saying, well, this should not happen. This is not true. This is unacceptable. And maybe the problem is it happens all the time on trivial issues. So the value of, powerful disagreement loses all meaning. And that's where it becomes difficult to make a point when you are actually right, like, things like the Earth is not 6,000 years old.
Right.
Because you're dealing on an emotional level, and when you get to that point, you're intersecting a bunch of other things. One of them being identity of the person, personal identity, socioeconomic situation. Like what Tom was saying is true. It's like people aren't necessarily arguing that direct point. For them, it is a metaphor for a number of other issues that might be lying underneath, whether it's socioeconomic inequality, what they see is some people doing better than they are, and they can only do that because they're in a privileged position. And because they're in a privileged position and they tell you something that you firmly believe is not the case, it's effectively your only weapon against them. Like people will argue because that's the only thing they have to fight back. I mean, it's a very complicated topic, and it's probably something that a psychology major would have a better time explaining.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, to a certain extent, I agree with you that if there is something untrue being said, there needs to be someone pointing out that it's untrue. That's why I love PolitiFact and factcheck.org. But at the same time, waving those facts around doesn't change people's opinions, and that's been shown to be true too.
I'm wondering if that's actually, it's not going to change some opinion. The people who are entrenched are not going to change their opinion. But I don't think that, in the case, maybe I'm wrong, but in the case of Brexit, the Brexit debate, I don't think there were actually 50% of the people. I think it was a lack of understanding and education on the issue.
Maybe, but that's also true in almost every election, and you will always hear the losing side make that argument. And that doesn't mean that you're not right this time, but it's that's always the argument. Whoever loses says, we just didn't, the people who voted for that thing I don't like aren't educated in why it's a bad idea.
Actually, you know, the Brexit thing is a very rare occurrence. It's not a regular election. It's an issue that is very specific, and that was, you know, it's not
one
just
of the
like
best
every
points
other
that
thing.
came out in the Phileas Club was it didn't allow for subtlety. You were either leave or stay. That was it. Leave or remain. And there were lots of people like, well, I don't love the EU. I do like this part about it, but I really don't like this other part about it. And so, but you were like, well, you either have to be leave or remain. You can't be like, well, couldn't we just change this one bit, right? And it's a much more complex issue than that. And I know that was Cameron's attempt was to say, I negotiated a change in our agreement, and this is what I brought back, but it wasn't enough to really make a difference for most people. They couldn't see what he had gotten changed.
Well, it was too minor, I think, for
exactly.
the people who wanted to leave anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I think there should have been a third option saying, yeah, I would really like to change that bit, as you said, Tom. I think that would have been an absolutely valid third answer.
But
to
read
the question.
that LA Times article.
I will.
Not even just to, you know, just because it's a really interesting article. I hadn't read it. I'm going to go read it too.
Hey, do you wanna end on an actual Godwin point?
Sure. Why not? We might as well.
This is how we got Nazis, because people didn't stand up. There you go.
Yeah,
Are
no,
you happy?
and that is a really, really good point. There has to be a line where you say, wait a minute, no, it is not okay to do whatever that is, right?
Okay, you're being reasonable. Trump is Hitler.
Oh,
this is what I think.
Clinton
is that okay?
is also Hitler. We're all Hitler. I'm Hitler. Jeez.
You know, and that's the point, and that's one of the shameful aspects of kind of doing something where this is Nazism, this is Hitler, is that at some point you tend to water the effectiveness of those terms down, where they become like, people just shrug their shoulder.
Yeah, of course.
It's not a big deal.
All right.
And clearly, I mean, clearly I wasn't being serious in those.
No,